do you like, are we that old to where we remember when she was a quasi sex symbol?
I'm that old that I was 12 years old and had to look at a 43-year-old woman on TV to masturbate. So, like, that's the best we could do. Like, oh, you didn't find anything behind the dumpster this week? You're jerking off to share.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane...
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love and growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why do they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I'm one of your three hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene Ryback Lyons.
What kind of babbling bullshit is this?
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out a race car VHS type rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes at the end of the podcast. The three of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's really how we help the podcast grow. You can download us everywhere, including iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are found. And be sure to check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. All of that out of the way. Big D, what movie are we doing? It's no more the Halloween Spooktacular. We're into November, which I feel is the forgotten month. No, it goes from Halloween to Christmas. So that's what it does now.
We have Thanksgiving. Oh, well, it's true. If you go out to the store,
you go out to the store.
But we have Thanksgiving, and we hit jackpot last year, so maybe we'll find another good Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah. Thanksgiving movies are in short supply, especially when you compare that against Halloween movies and Christmas movies. For our fans who've been following us for quite some time, I want to get their opinion on this, but I really enjoyed the Halloween Spooktacular. I enjoyed the entire month dedicating to a genre of movies. Are we going to do the same for Christmas? Like, I feel like people are expecting us to start Christmas movies now that we're in November.
Well, two thoughts, Raj. One, we would be remiss if we didn't point out that there is one really, really, really great Thanksgiving movie. I think it's a Thanksgiving movie. Wasn't The Ref 1994's The Ref? Isn't that a Thanksgiving movie where Dennis Leary pops in? Or is that Christmas too?
He pops in at their home. I think they're having a big dinner. That's all I remember. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is the only mainstream Thanksgiving movie that I can think of.
I don't know. Just write in. The audience will know. They'll tell us.
That's right. Okay.
They'll tell us.
Fuck, The Ref is also a Christmas movie. Great.
God damn it.
See?
But I do agree. There are plenty of Christmas movies, certainly enough that we could cover a whole month and pad the shit out of our numbers for a very desolate January.
Well, I mean, this movie that we're about to do could have taken place over November. It seemed like there was a lot of thanking that was going on. Big D, what was the movie selection that we were doing tonight? What was the theme?
Well, I was a little scared when it came up, but it turned out not to be that bad. I think we have a group. Let's just call them the Expendables. Now, it's not the movie The Expendables, but there's a set of 80s and 90s action tough guy stars that we'll eventually have to cover. And we've already done Stallone. We did Schwarzenegger. We have not done any Terry Crews. We did Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV. No Jet Li. We did Bruce Willis in Die Hard. We've done plenty of Harrison Ford. No Wesley Snipes. We're missing him. Jean-Claude.
No, we did Wesley Snipes. We did Wesley Snipes, Major League.
Oh, good catch. Antonio Banderas. Mickey Rourke we did. We've not done a Mel Gibson. Am I correct? No, we did. We did Braveheart.
We did Braveheart.
Yep. Chuck Norris. And I think that would pretty much close it out. But the one who's not in the Expendables, but he is 80s and 90s tough guy martial arts movie was Steven Seagal. So that was his category, the best of Steven Seagal. In last place, On Deadly Ground, Out for Justice, Marked for Death, Above the Law, Hard to Kill, and the winner with a whopping 67% of the vote, over 1,000, was the 1992 Navy classic Under Siege.
I can't believe that they broke the trend there. Because if you notice, all Seagal movies have 3 words in the title.
Yeah.
It should have been like Under the Siege. That would have been perfect. It breaks my heart. It's a weird, I'm all about order, and just having that one less word there. At least Under Siege 2 made up for it.
Well, the one thing that it does have is if you look at the posters, they're all the exact same picture and style of Steven Seagal. It's like having your LinkedIn profile that you haven't changed since you registered for LinkedIn. Steven Seagal had one look for his movie posters for about 15 years. And now he recently switched it up in 2010. It's gone from the clean shaven, straight ahead Punisher look to almost this Wilford Brimley's diabetes swollen look, but he tries to cover up his extra layers with a really dark goatee and almost like black Muppet hair. And then he wears what appear to be transition lens glasses. That's his new look, and it's on all of his movies since 2010.
You can definitely tell which 80s and 90s stars have stylists and which don't, because a stylist can really, really help you. They can go, okay, but when they're making their own decisions, and Steven Seagal he's calling all of his own shots. That's the problem. Is he's like, yeah, this looks cool, and there's nobody there to be like, nah, it does not.
This looks good.
But like, he must have been a fan of John Carpenter, because John Carpenter always had to be, John Carpenter's Halloween. All of these are Steven Seagal is on deadly ground. Steven Seagal is out for justice. Steven Seagal is hard to kill. It's always the same title. And yes, he's supposed to be this martial arts expert. Why does he have a shotgun in every movie poster?
That's right. Well, all right. So who was the tough guy? Was it Terry Savalas? No, that was, who was the
Telly
70s
Savalas?
tough guy? Not no,
Oh,
no.
Clint Eastwood?
No, not Clint Eastwood. The guy with the hair.
Really?
And he had a mustache. He had a real thick mustache.
Chuck
and he had
Norris?
the hair. No, not Chuck Norris.
Burt
He's
Reynolds.
like-
Charles Bronson.
Charles Bronson. That's who Steven Seagal wants to be. He wanted to be a 1990s Bronson. But he can't be because he's such a douche. I hate Steven Seagal so much, which saddens me because of all his movies, Under Siege is really not that bad. It's the best of the worst.
All right, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Shut the movies.
Listen to the trailer and you'll hear what's coming up next week.
No, but it really, like,
He's fighting through. Roger's going
I'm
to keep
sorry.
going.
do you want me to go back? Do you want me to?
No,
Okay.
just keep going. Keep going.
No, I'll go back.
We just stormed the USS Shat the movies. Roger's locked in the freezer, but he's fighting his way out.
He's fighting it.
He will tell you what to think of this movie before we start with the movie review.
Hey, Private, take out my pies.
Go tell the captain
Private.
to spin my suit. Ryback, you got a fire in here.
No, just go.
Oh, all right.
Get my pies out of the oven.
What kind of babbling bullshit is this? All right. What were we talking about?
You just told us what you thought of the movie.
The plot?
Sorry. All right. Well, here's the plot of the movie. Under Siege is a 1992 American action thriller film directed by Andrew Davis. It stars Steven Seagal as an ex-Navy SEAL who must stop a group of mercenaries, played by Tommy Lee Jones, on a U.S. Navy battleship, the USS Missouri. It is Seagal's most successful film in critical and financial terms, including 2 Oscar nominations for sound production. The musical score was composed by Gary Chang and was followed by a 1995 sequel, Under Siege 2, The Dark Territory. Upon its opening weekend, Under Siege made over $15 million, and then from there it went on to make close to $84 million worldwide. It has made $156.5 million. At its time, it was the most successful film that had never been screened for critics prior to its release. Surprisingly, it is actually one of the few Steven Seagal films to be certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, along with Executive Decision and Machete being called the Die Hard on a Battleship by film critics. Harrison Ford saw a rough cut of the film and approved director Andrew Davis for The Fugitive. We always ask the question, where were you when you first saw this movie? I'll start with you, Big D.
So this one should be easy. I know a lot of people hate Steven Seagal, but I really hate Steven Seagal. The way he looks, the way he talks. So I don't think I've ever seen an entire Steven Seagal movie all the way through. Not even this one. So the first time I watched it was yesterday.
What? Are you for real?
No, I've seen.
You've made it 44 years in life without seeing one Seagal movie.
Yeah, that's intentional. That wasn't by accident.
Yeah, he's telling the truth because he would have joined the Navy instead of the Army otherwise. If he had seen this movie as a kid, he would have been like, fuck it.
Yeah, fuck Top Gun. This, I feel, is the movie that the Navy needs to be showing recruits. Turn away Tom Cruise. We've lost that loving feeling. It's Steven Seagal under siege for me, 100%.
So I was a big martial art. I still am, but I was always a big martial arts fan. And as a child of the 80s, I completely bought into Steven Seagal mania. I thought he was the coolest thing. He was the toughest guy. I watched this movie several times on VHS. It's got guns, it's got sailors, it's got throwing knives and a stripper. As a 12-year-old, I was like, this is the perfect movie. So it was good to go back to it and see it again as an adult. And it still held a lot of the same magic.
Yeah, I also went through, as a kid, part of my bonding experience with my stepfather was actually watching martial art films. He got me hooked on old school Bruce Lee movies. From there, though, in the 80s and 90s, it really hit a rough patch because it was there really wasn't really good martial art. So you had to, unfortunately, turn to the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. And for a brief moment there, Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. But that was the way that I would bond with my stepfather. And I remember watching this on VHS tape with him one weekend, and we both loved this movie. I remember as a kid, all the same factors that you gave, Gene, I had the same. I was like, this is the perfect movie. And then I was hooked. I was like, I got to watch everything Steven Seagal did, which eventually I grew out of, thank God. It's like, because I feel like if you keep liking Steven Seagal, it's like fans of Limp Bizkit that are still around.
I think that's a really apt analogy because they were shitty even at their peak, but you didn't realize it at their peak.
You need to know it.
But
right.
You definitely at this point have no excuse for not knowing.
Exactly. With that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
It was the final voyage of America's mightiest battleship.
What's on this helicopter?
This little sweetheart, Miss July 89.
God, I love this business.
I love you.
The party was wild.
Love you to death.
They really knocked them dead. Imagine this arsenal of tactical nuclear weapons falling into the wrong hands. The Pentagon never did.
4 minutes ahead of schedule. Damn, I'm good.
Now, a team of terrorists have taken over.
Wake up the president.
But there's just one thing they didn't count on. The cook.
Are you like some special forces guy or something?
No, I'm just a cook.
Oh my God, we're gonna die.
This is not the work of a cook.
I want you to coordinate your efforts with us.
Yes, sir.
I see that you completely disobeyed my orders.
Roger that.
Ryback is an ex-SEAL.
Expert in martial arts.
Explosives.
Stand back!
Weapons and tactics.
I also cook.
The Nimitz is tracking 2 Tomahawks just launched from the Missouri.
Where are they headed?
Honolulu.
Happy trails.
Steven Seagal.
I know you, don't I?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Been a long time.
I'll see you in hell, sailor boy.
Under siege.
The battleship USS Missouri arrives at Pearl Harbor for her final voyage. Meanwhile, Casey Ryback, played by Steven Seagal, is a chief petty officer assigned as a cook, and he prepares meals in celebration of the birthday of Captain Adams against the orders of Commander Krill, played by Gary Busey, who is having food and entertainment brought in by helicopter. Krill provokes a brawl with Ryback and then detains Ryback in a freezer under guard. A helicopter lands on the ship's deck carrying playmate Jordan Tate and a group of caterers who are really a band of mercenaries led by ex-CIA operative William Bill Stranix.
Okay, so I got to tell you, I think the movie's off to a good start because Seagal is missing the douchiest part of his entire persona is that ponytail. So when I see him that he is at least close to Navy regulation, it can't be more than 4 inches, he's cut that pretentious ponytail, which actually has a Facebook fan page, in case you didn't know that. I right away find him more likable, and I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I read all the stats in the beginning, and I feel like the success of this movie and why I like it is, of all the Steven Seagal movies, I think it actually has a competent director. Andrew Davis, I think, does a good job of reducing Steven Seagal's douchiness and highlighting his best qualities, almost to the point to where in the beginning of the movie, I'm like, was Steven Seagal always this charming? I don't remember him ever having humor or being able to deliver a line of comedic value. And I think Andrew Davis tapped into it. Again, the only other movie that has a certified fresh rating, there's 2 others, but one of them is Executive Decision, and Steven Seagal dies in the first 10 minutes. That's why people like that movie, is Steven Seagal died in it, so it's automatically fresh. But he's relatively charming here, and I think it definitely has something to do with the fact that his ponytail wasn't there.
I don't think anybody's ever accused him of being charming, but it's a regular formula that we see. It is Die Hard, and it goes something like this. You have a group of bad guys, they take over some enclosed space, then they take people hostage, they steal something, but there's one ordinary guy who avoids capture, sneaks around, he kills the bad guys and saves the day. So this is the Die Hard formula, but they flipped it a bit. Instead of the regular everyday man, they went with a Navy SEAL.
But I think the difference, as Raj is pointing out, though, is that we've watched, 80-something movies on this podcast. And what's weird about this one is, even though it's not particularly great, for some reason you can't look away from it. Like there's a magnetism to the screen. And normally when I'm really into, note taking. And so I'll get really distracted when I get into a thought about taking a note, and then I have to rewind back to get the plot. This was the opposite. There was really nothing going on, but I was just glued to the screen and I'd forget to take notes. I was like, what is it about this movie? And I think, as Roger's saying, it's got to be the directing and the charm of the talent.
Yeah, I was hanging up in Jacksonville with cousin Brian. We hung out for Halloween together, and I was going to record the podcast up there. We had a little bit of a scheduling issue, but we watched this movie together, and he was like, I've never seen this movie. I hate Steven Seagal, though, so I'm going to hate this movie. We turned it on. Within the first 3 minutes, he was hooked. He's like, this doesn't look bad. It doesn't sound bad. It was like an early 90s guilty pleasure. This movie is like eating a ham and cheese Hot Pocket for breakfast. Like, people may question whether or not like that is actually food or like your selection in nutrition, and you feel gross and guilty afterwards, but God damn it, it's fucking tasty when you're eating it in that particular moment. Like, I wouldn't go around saying, by the way, you know what I had for breakfast? A fucking ham and cheese Hot Pocket. Like, I don't go around saying, you know what I watched yesterday? Steven Seagal movie.
Well, that's true. But you guys also have to remember, he's not carrying the workload here. It's like there's a great cast. The film works because Seagal doesn't have to carry the whole movie. The supporting cast includes Gary Busey. You have Tommy Lee Jones, who the year before this movie was nominated for an Oscar for JFK. The following year, he won the Best Supporting Actor for Fugitive. Then you have Patrick O'Neill as Captain Adams. You have even a young Raymond Cruz, Tuco from Breaking Bad. So yes, even though...
That's who it was.
Yeah, it was Tuco.
That's who it was. I was like, I've seen him before.
Because look...
It's Tuco. That's great.
Yeah, you have Seagal being likable. He's smiling and joking. You have Tommy Lee acting crazy. You have Gary Busey being manic. So there's a lot going on, a lot to like, and it keeps you engaged. Like a Hot Pocket.
So I agree that the cast is strong, but I've got just one question about Tommy Lee Jones. That was the fatal flaw to this movie for me, is that the pretense there, as Raj said in the description, is that there's supposed to be this band that's coming on board. And usually with the band, you've got the band leader, presumably, which Tommy Lee Jones is supposed to be. Who is he supposed to be? Like,
I don't know.
Like, I don't know how bored they are on Navy ships, but why would anyone be excited about some unknown rock star burnout just showing up on their ship? And I get that they were excited about the Playboy Playmate, but why would any single sailor be jazzed about like a shitty Keith Richards just showing up?
But it's not even, I don't think he's even the lead singer. I think all he does is play harmonica. Mm-hmm. Like, that's his role in the band. He's like a hype man. He's like when Bruce Willis in real life would open Planet Hollywoods and then play the harmonica.
No, he's like Dan Aykroyd. Yeah, but look,
or Dan Aykroyd.
You're questioning, like, why would they be jazzed about this? And I found myself thinking, this is fucking ridiculous. There's no way the Navy, there's no way anybody would believe this situation would be something that could happen. They'd question it. Okay, you're bringing in a stripper, a Playboy playmate. And then I remembered, I said, holy shit, do you remember that Cher video from the 90s?
Yes.
If I could turn back time.
God, yes.
That was actually filmed on the USS Missouri. That was filmed on the real ship. They filmed this on the Alabama, but the Missouri, when it was active still, the Navy let Cher come out and do that video with that crazy, fishnet body stocking and the one piece like belt that covered her lady parts with her ass hanging out. And MTV wouldn't even play it at night, and the Navy got all kinds of flack. So maybe this isn't too unbelievable.
Do you believe, are we that old to where we remember when she was a quasi sex symbol? Are we that old, guys?
I'm that old that I was 12 years old and had to look at a 43-year-old woman on TV to masturbate. So, that's the best we could do. You can't. You didn't find anything behind the dumpster this week? You're jerking off to Cher.
You kids don't know how good you have it.
Did you guys ever steal the tags off of lingerie at Mervin's?
No.
And then hide it under your bed, and then your mom found it?
No.
And then your mom maybe put on her underwear and got in front of you and said, "What, you want to see women in their underwear? Look at this."
No.
Yeah. Go on, Raj.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
All right, getting back to the movie. I've been on board decommissioned naval ships, decommissioned import permanently ships, essentially tourist trap ships. The USS Constitution had better security than this. I understand that Commander Krill, Gary Busey, he was in on it and he paved the way for these invaders. But on the other side of things, coming off the island, nobody checked the helicopters to see if anybody had automatic weapons on them, the caterers.
I'll give you an answer there.
Nobody's checking the civilians.
You don't remember, they stole the helicopter. That's why the F-18 Hornet came after it, because it was a stolen ship. They stole the Chinook.
They were looking for the Chinook.
Yeah, because they stole it.
That's why they scrambled the F-18.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So where did they get the pilots? Are the pilots in on it too, or did they hijack the pilots?
They're fucking mercenaries. They're part of the group.
I would have liked to have known a little bit of a backstory. I get it, but listen, I'll forgive all of that because this movie has, again, all the 90s tropes that you just feel. It's like eating McDonald's French fries. It feels so good at the moment, but it's just empty calories. It has exciting B-roll footage of Navy commercials. It has exciting 90s action music. President George W. Bush. It has Playboys, CNC Music Factory playing on the radio, dancing in the galley, surprise birthday parties. It's filled with ships of horny Navy dudes. This movie is such a time capsule for the way we were.
Yeah, and you talk about the party, and the party is the key part, and it also ties into Gene's question about security. There is a chain of command in the military, and multiple times the crew questions Commander Krill, and they say, "I object to this." One of the guys actually says, "I formally protest your decision to let this happen."
Right.
So even though it's unbelievable, because they have 32 Tomahawks, 8 with nuclear tips,
sure,
at least they try to explain it. I appreciate that.
Well, Stranix's forces seize control of the ship with Krill's help. Several officers are killed, including Captain Adams. Stranix intends to sell the Tomahawk missiles by unloading them onto a submarine he previously stole from North Korea. The CIA tried assassinating him prior to the events of the film, so Stranix and his men take over the ship's weapon systems, even shooting down a jet that was sent to investigate. They plan on covering their escape by using missiles to obliterate tracking systems in Pearl Harbor.
So I'm going to start off here and kind of tie into what Gene had said, questioning the security on the boat. I want to ask, could this logistically be feasible? Let's just talk about the size of the boat, because I think that is the biggest problem when you want to try to take this ship over. The USS Missouri, it's an Iowa-class battleship. It displaces over 57,000 tons. It's 887 feet long, 108 feet wide, and it has 2,700 compartments. And it normally has a full crew of about 1,850. So this is Nakatomi Plaza laid down and put in the water. I don't know how you could even dream with a skeleton crew, let's say it's half this, how you could try to take this ship over with that small group of 30 mercenaries.
Yeah, again, I think the movie does a good enough job explaining this and saying that they were shipping people off to, and I think Krill was behind this, kind of trying to send people off to the island. Even with the cooking crew, they're like, hey, everybody, you get to go to the island, take the weekend off, blah, blah, blah. Only select delegates and select honoraries are allowed to be here for the party. I think take that plus the fact that it's being decommissioned. And then I think they really try to make an attempt through a lot of flash in the action to show us that this group of mercenaries is highly skilled, very organized, and it's supposed to do two things. One, show us that maybe it is possible they could take the ship. And two, show us just how badass Steven Seagal is.
Yeah. And also, we saw Willem Dafoe take over an entire cruise ship with just portable computers and golf clubs.
You forget he had the Nintendo Power Glove.
Oh, that's right. He did have the Nintendo Power Glove.
Yeah, you get that. You could take a ship over.
But one of the things I do think they made as a mistake is, and this is just prevalent in 90s movies in general, is the way they treat firearms is goofy. And I'm really glad that movies have come a long way in the way that they treat the reality of weapons and how weapons should be used. In this, they have the wrong guns for the job, first of all. They've got weapons with suppressors that don't seem to suppress flash or sound. You got people that are firing wildly aboard a ship that's got steel walls. Nobody seems to have trouble hearing. They're in like enclosed rooms, enclosed compartments, firing wildly, and everybody can hear just fine. There's no bullets ricocheting anywhere. And I just felt like they went a little over the top there with, you could be tactically proficient, but you don't need to be shooting everything.
Yeah, I tell you, like you talk about tactically proficient. I think that's one of the things that they did well. These guys aren't the typical stupid terrorists. They have some great ideas, and whether they execute them well, they said, you know what? Let's weld the crosshatches closed. I'm going to threaten the soldiers. If you move, I'm going to kill you and the guy next to you. They've planned it. They've rehearsed it. Tommy Lee Jones says, you know what? 4 minutes ahead of schedule. Damn, I'm good. At least they have a plan in place, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, like you said, I like how even you see a couple of the sailors, this is a military movie, so you would expect that one or two individuals would try to be a hero or try to, fight against their oppressors. And it does a job where like they at least show someone fighting back and being, ultimately they have to pay the consequence. They do shoot and kill them to show that they mean business. If they couldn't do that today in, a mainstream action film, I feel like that, it would be much more cartoonish. It would be, because you can't, like, they get a little bit of blood. There's like some squibs that you see that you don't really see blood anymore in action movies.
Raj, you mentioned that this is a military movie. One thing you've got to do if you're making a military movie, though, is people are going to get you if you do not make your uniforms and costuming look right. And man, they need to fire the entire costuming crew. So the guy that's supposed to be guarding Steven Seagal, the guard that's watching him, they keep referring to him as a private. So if he's a private, he's not in the Navy, which doesn't have privates. So I could say, okay, maybe he's a Marine that's been brought aboard to be security, right. Okay? But in that case, he would be an MP with some sort of insignia on him, right? He's got no name badge. He's got no rank. They just gave him some camos and said, get out there. He even had like a shitty pair of like old school handcuffs hanging from his belt.
Plus, he looked like he was 40 years old. What kind of private was that?
Oh, 40. Everybody in this movie looks like they're 40 years old. This is the oldest Navy I've ever seen. Like, I understand that they got old guys there that are guests of the captain, but come on.
Again, this is relative peacetime military. If it's this wild all the time, of course I want to stay in as long as possible until some real shit happens, and then I'll take my leave. Well, Big D, correct me if I'm wrong. The Marines are the security on Navy ships all the time.
No, it's they use the Navy as their form of transportation. So there would be Marines on board.
Oh, I see.
But they're distinct and clearly separate branches of the military.
Yeah. So the Navy has its own masters at arms, which are basically the naval MPs, and so they wouldn't be a private. I believe he would be a sailor recruit or seaman recruit. Right? Seaman recruit is the lowest level in the Navy, I think.
I don't know.
So basically what you're saying is there was no, like, typically at least they try and get the military right. If they make a military movie today, they usually have a consultant that comes in and makes sure that the movie is doing the right thing. What you're saying is that either Steven Seagal, who's a producer on this movie, didn't want to put in the extra effort, and he just went and got a costume off like a costuming rack in Hollywood.
No, I'll end this whole conversation right here. They did what looked kind of cool. The uniform that, not to jump to the end here, but just to prove my point, the uniform that Seagal is wearing at the end when he's at the captain's funeral, his medals and his citations are in the wrong place. They don't make sense. They went with what looked cool. They said, ooh, the guard would have camouflage. Okay, let's do it. For God's sake, he's wearing a pink tank top, I think, through part of it while he's cooking in the kitchen.
Hey, look, fuck the military part. Tommy Lee Jones keeps changing outfits from cut to cut.
Yes.
Sometimes he's the rocker. Sometimes he's wearing that black tactical shirt. And I'm not saying like fast forward an hour or so. No, he goes back and forth between them. Like he's changing costumes. Like it's fucking 90210 aboard the USS Missouri.
But I think this is where Tommy Lee shines. Nobody plays. Gary Busey is actually crazy, but Tommy Lee plays this good, crazy, is it Skrillex?
Skrillex. It's definitely Skrillex. It's definitely the DJ Skrillex.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Stranix. Sorry, Stranix. So he plays Stranix, and that whole bit where he's talking, he's finally in communication with the Pentagon, and he does that whole, the wake up, the entire world with UV light waves and sexually transmitted diseases and deforestation. He's playing the crazy role and making them think he's crazy. But the whole cast is smiling, and I found myself smiling along with him too. He makes this movie, and he is by far the best actor out there on screen.
I get that he was a former CIA asset, and the guy wanted him dead, or his connection at the CIA wanted him dead. But is Tommy Lee Jones' characters, is Stranik like an eco-terrorist? Or does he just want anarchy? Like, I don't understand what his motivation is. It seems as if he's like,
he doesn't want to be killed.
Is that the only thing?
Yeah, no, he's become a mercenary. He's out for profit at this point.
Right.
What it was is he was a CIA operative whose job it was to take over ships. Like that's what he does best.
Sure.
So then they try to scrub him. They try to kill him.
Yeah.
And so now he's like, well, fuck the U.S. government. Yep. I'm not safe from them. I got to go out on my own. And so all these guys working with him are presumably mercenaries from other countries and some Americans probably.
Yeah. His whole speech about the only an inch of topsoil and about how the government's in total chaos and deforestation, that was just a ploy to make the CIA and the Pentagon think he was off the hinges, that anything was possible, and he would actually use the nukes.
Okay.
It was a ploy, because you saw all the other henchmen, the mercenaries, laughing when he was done with his diatribe.
Okay. So, all right. So he just wants people to think that he's crazy and this anarchist, but he's really he's really out for money. All right. But, again, I do believe Tommy Lee shines in this movie. He's really going for it. But the actor that's just takes it to another level, no matter what, is Gary Busey. Gary Busey, when he acts, always seems out of breath. The way he delivered lines like, he hates officers, he hates America. Like,
it's his head injury. You forget, he had a head injury. That's why he's out of breath. Cut the guy some slack. Wear a helmet.
Well, Krill realizes they forgot about Ryback and learns that the kitchen is an unsecured area. Stranix sends in 2 mercenaries to eliminate Ryback and his guard. The guard is killed, but Ryback eliminates the assassins. He then calls Admiral Bates at the Pentagon on a satellite phone, whereupon the Navy plans to send a SEAL team to retake the ship. In order to keep the missile theft plan in place, Krill activates the fire suppression system in the forecastle, leaving the crew members to drown. The terrorists expect that Ryback will try to save his colleagues and then set up an ambush.
So this is obviously before Seagal started to take himself really seriously, because he's actually kind of funny. He's not the normal douchey Seagal. He's cracking jokes. He's smiling. He seems like he's having a good time. And he has some great lines like this.
Go tell the captain he's spitting my suit. Ryback, you got a fire in here. Get my pies out of the oven.
Come on. He's having fun. He's actually pretty likable and funny. And I started to question whether I was wrong about Seagal all these years.
All right. Was Seagal trying to do an accent in the beginning of the movie? Like, I know that he was doing some impressions.
The
but
Creole?
Do you think I know he was doing the Creole, but then he does it in other places and then just forgets about it and then acts like a bad impression of Marlon Brando throughout the rest of the movie?
Oh, first of all, with the Creole thing, I want to give a shout out to this movie because they did a Boudreaux and Thibodeau joke, which is that is some old school Louisiana Cajun shit right there. Like Boudreaux and Thibodeau, you know how every region has their 2 guy jokes where the 2 guys are so dumb that whatever. Do you want to hear a Boudreaux and Thibodeau joke, guys?
I do.
Yes, please.
All right. So Boudreaux gets home one day and his wife come out and she said, Boudreaux, the car got water in the carburetor. And Boudreaux goes, how you know that? And she goes, because it's down there in the swamp. That's a Boudreaux and Thibodeau joke right there. So anyway, they did a Boudreaux and Thibodeau joke in this movie. Very, very subtle. I thought that was great.
So that's like that's the Creole version of like Little Johnny. Like Little Johnny's sitting in class.
Yeah, no, it's like I think like in the Midwest they have like Zed and Zeke or whatever, and you know, like every region has its like two dumb guys that talk to each other in a joke, you know?
Like German jokes, the old German jokes, it was always Fritz.
Yes.
Aha.
Yes. Boudreaux and Thibodeau.
Yeah, but you know, this I think is the Terminator effect. Seagal, when he doesn't emote and when he is just kind of dry throughout the entire movie, he comes across as less douchey, which again makes this movie better because you forget how much of an asshole Steven Seagal is. Like he's on Harvey Weinstein level harassment suits and sexual, like predatory actions on set. Like he was well known to have a casting couch. I think Jenny McCarthy's on record by saying that when she interviewed or when she not interviewed,
auditioned?
What do you do? Audition. When she auditioned for Under Siege 2, he brought her into his casting couch room and then unzipped his pants. Like Steven Seagal is a creepy douche. And like he's turned into that. Like I guess there's always been that visual.
Into it.
No, but like there was a brief moment in time after Under Siege where he was a sex symbol. It was like when Smash Mouth was popular, just for that sliver of time. You know, after All Star, women were like, "This guy's not too ugly. I could bang him."
Roger, I feel like your memory takes everything that's happened in the past and then compresses it. And you're just like,
it's like a zip file.
That was all then. Yeah, there's today, yesterday, tomorrow, and then.
Yes.
That all just goes into then.
Prior to his head injury. You know, there's like a big like space of time.
Guys, he hates officers. He hates America. But when it comes to these martial art action heroes, we talked about the Expendables. People are always asking, you know, who would win in a fight, especially when it comes to like these type of actors. Do you ever say Steven Seagal is going to win in the fight? Like he always seems the one that's going to get beat up, right? Like there's a rumor of him being choked out and shitting his pants. It's a famous Hollywood legend. But it turns out I really wanted this to be true. It is not. Gene LaBelle, who's a stuntman. He has been just purporting this rumor for years. It never truly happened because Seagal, as much of a tough guy he wants to portray on these films, he's always flanked by multiple bodyguards. But like, what do you guys think? Do you think Seagal could ever beat up any of the other Expendables?
So, yeah, I think he could just beat up other Expendables. Just because a guy has, you know, bodyguards doesn't mean he can't fight. He's being smart about it, right? He doesn't want to go to prison. He doesn't want to go to jail. He doesn't want to risk bodily harm. And if you're that guy, I guarantee you, if you are a martial arts star, you're going to regularly run into people that want to test you, right? It's like being like a gangster rapper, right? Like it's just a thing that happens. But that being said, I think, Raj, you pointed it out really well on a previous movie that the more close-ups they do of like your hands and your feet and your face during the action scene,
yes,
the more American Hollywood martial arts you are. And the guys who really know their shit are the guys that aren't afraid to have that wide shot where you can really see their whole body in action.
Yep.
Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. I mean, those guys, Jet Li.
Yeah, and also you got to remember, Seagal, he's the only one to say that Steven Seagal is a tough guy. He lies all the time. He told the LA Times in '88, he said, there's a quote, "You can say that I became an advisor to several CIA agencies in the field. And through my friends at the CIA, I met many powerful people that I did special favors for. Some of those special favors that Seagal claims to have done work for, the Shah of Iran, the South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu, the Egyptian president Anwar Sadat, and the CIA said this never happened. This is in his mind." And he even claimed when he was doing an interview with Jane Pauley that he considers Above the Law, which is a melodrama about the CIA. He said this is somewhat autobiographical. He's fucking nuts. None of this ever happened. I doubt he could even fight. I would take Swayze in a fight over him.
Okay, so you don't think Steven Seagal has any skills whatsoever? Then he was, though, noted for being the first Western or American teacher of martial arts in Japan, right? He was the first one who opened up a dojo. But knowing Steven Seagal, he just literally opened it and no one ever came. Like, do you think any of this happened?
Japan also has vending machines for used panties. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's really a mark of excellence.
To answer your questions, I would take Gene Lyons in a draw against Seagal in the 90s. That shows you what I think of him.
That's okay. But like, okay, so we all think that Steven Seagal is living this life that he's completely fabricated in his mind. Does it make it even stranger in the timeline we're currently in, where Vladimir Putin has appointed him like a special envoy of like Russian culture? Like, he works for this Russian government, like, for real. Or do you think do you think Vladimir Putin is just like, he just uses Steven Seagal as his own like little like jester, kind of in the same way that Kim Jong-un uses Dennis Rodman? Like, do you think that they just like, they get their own celebrity? You've made it as an autocratic leader when you have a washed up American celebrity?
Oh, totally. And that's why I believe the Shah of Iran thing. Like, any Iranian with power is going to want to hang out with Steven Seagal. He appeals to so many of our triggers.
I get it.
He wears a lot of black. He's got a ponytail. He apparently has a casting couch. These are all very Persian things.
Yeah.
Beyond all that, kind of getting back to the shittiness of Seagal, I think that you mentioned the misogyny in this movie, and I think it's in full effect. And again, this is one of those things that we were accused after our review of Beetlejuice of being social justice warriors. Scott, I'm looking at you.
What? Were we?
Yeah,
what
because
did we say?
I was talking about. I said that Beetlejuice was a pervert, and then he was a pedophile, and that he was sexually harassing Barb. And so, this is part of what we do on the podcast: is look at stuff that at 12 I didn't think this is at all, but at 38 I'm like, wait a minute, there's some like seriously disrespectful action going on here, and it is just this harassment. I mean, the playmate Jordan Tate walks onto the ship and everybody's like coming out of the water. There's guys jumping out of portholes. There's guys swinging from ropes, like, oh my god. And then you got Gary Busey just pawing all over her. But here's the thing: I remember I was 12 years old, and I've seen this movie about 6 times in my life. But that stripping scene out of the cake, I've seen that easily 50 times.
Okay, so I'm going to take a different approach to that. Yes, the Navy guys have been on the ship. They really would be that horny. But I like what they did with the character. She is as good as we could have hoped for a sidekick for Ryback. She isn't dumb. She isn't like sitting there cowering in the corner. She's proactively part of the rescue. When she finds out, she says, are you special forces or whatever? He says, I'm a cook. She goes, we're going to be dead. But when she sees that he's competent, she said, I'm not going to just sit here where you tell me to stay you're going to lock me into a closet. I'm going to get out. I want to be with you. She carries the weapons. She kills the guy who would have killed Seagal. She's an active participant. And yeah, she's a Playboy model who shows her breasts in the movie. But I think she's as good as we could have hoped. And she's his equal. Without her and them playing back and forth as kind of strong sidekick, have that good chemistry, this could have been terrible.
The actress who played Princess Vespa in Spaceballs is a much better sidekick than Erica Leniak's. Erica Leniak, I think, got this because she wore a naval-themed outfit in her centerfold in July of 1989. I think that's how she got this role.
Well, I mean, yeah, there might be some meta action there, but I think Big D's point, and I agree with it, is that look, this isn't Linda Hamilton, no, but this is as competent a sidekick as we're going to get in this movie. She could have just screamed and hid and ran around topless the whole movie, but that's not what they decided to do with it. And I agree that the dialogue between the two is really strong.
Yeah, she said, I have no idea what happened. They must have drugged me. I fell asleep. And from that moment on, she's with him. She's by his side. She's even talking to the Pentagon. She grabs that communicator and starts talking.
All right. So what you guys are saying is that you both really enjoy the character of Jordan Tate, and you feel that all the dialogue was really strong.
No, don't put words in our mouth. We didn't say that.
No, what are you saying? What are you saying?
We're saying for the character and for the 90s, they could have made her a completely helpless, just a bimbo who just hides in the corner and goes, oh, save me. She doesn't say that. She saves him.
Yeah, it goes back to the mystery of this movie of why you would like it. Because when she comes on screen and she's got her tactical gear on, which I don't know where the fuck she found that stuff, but she's got like a backward ball cap and like one like shock of blonde hair shooting out the front of it. She looks like a prepubescent, boy or something like that. And I'm like annoyed at first, and I'm like, it's kind of cute. Like she looks like a little tomboy, and she's doing things that are completely unbelievable. He explains to her one time the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic, and suddenly she's shooting dudes to death. But I think the point being was that there was just enough of it to make it okay. They used the character enough, but they didn't go overboard with it. I guess the only disappointment I had is I thought that he was going to just push her off the entire movie and just like be annoyed by her, and they let him warm up to her, which I didn't care for.
No, within the first 2 seconds when she's kind of coming out of her haze and she jumped out of the cake, and he says to her,
What kind of babbling bullshit is this?
I was laughing my ass off. And she fights right back at him. She's holding her ground against this Navy SEAL cook. And it's, again, as good as we could have hoped.
All right. So you both are saying, if I hear you correctly, that the movie is stronger because of the character.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was she needed? Was she required? No. But because she was there and the way that her character was stronger than I expected, it was an addition, not a subtraction.
All right. Well, Steven Seagal has claimed in an interview that he is the one who suggested the character, Jordan Tate, and Jordan Tate was not included in the original screenplay, and that he personally suggested the inclusion of a stripper as a sidekick to add humor to the film. So in a way, he's an unaccredited screenwriter that you agree with. You agree with a Steven Seagal decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the first thing he's been honest about this entire time. Of course he suggested her.
Of course he did.
Everything that's consistent with everything we've just said. Casting couch, Playboy Playmate, makes perfect sense.
So you're just saying it just worked out. It just
No, are you kidding me? If you're Seagal, you want your casting couch, that creepy ass couch. He probably said, I want 14 strippers. For God's sake, he describes himself growing up as an urban street kid. His mother said, no, he was frail and suffered from asthma. This guy lies every turn. Don't believe anything.
Where Ryback hears sailors banging on pipes in Morse code and rescues them. Together, they overcome the ambush, shut off the water in the forecastle, and eliminate several terrorists. Ryback shuts down the Missouri's weapon systems to allow the incoming Navy SEALs to land. However, the submarine crew shoots down the helicopter carrying the Navy SEALs.
Again, Stranix, he's prepared. Once Ryback gets the jump on them, he immediately has a contingency plan. He says, everybody on the radio, he says, report back in 5-minute intervals, switch the net to the alternate frequency. They're prepared. Now he has a plan. The mercenaries are a bit inept, but again, I like it. They're doing all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought his character was a little bit goofy. The mercenaries were not. There's a lot of contradictions here, right? In the sense that they're good enough to take over the ship, but then suddenly they're easily dispatched. Any of them gets hit or shot anyway, they're immediately down. But again, these are things we can forgive. This is a 90s movie. You think about, this is a legacy that goes back to Rambo, Van Damme movies. I think this is what makes Die Hard very special and different from this movie, is that he is on the run. He is not on the offensive. He is at a disadvantage against these guys and not doing a great job of killing them, So I think that this is where they're padding Seagal a little too much, but does it ruin the movie? Not really.
I think it has to be contractually in these actors' riders, because you have Van Damme, like in Time Cop, at about 10 minutes in, he ditches the gun and just spends the next hour and a half kicking people in the face. Seagal's move is silent. Like he kind of comes up on people, does these really quick moves, like, and the dudes are knocked unconscious, a couple karate chops, not a move. The enemy doesn't even make a noise. There's times where he has a gun and chooses instead to just come up and do that knife thing. It's hilarious.
Steven Seagal always makes that noise too when he does his hand thing. Do you think that's
Yes.
Do you think that's him? Do you think that's him just trying to catch his breath? Or do you think that's him like making cuz I don't know what's worse. The fact that he's so out of shape and he can only do hand moves really close up, like he can't kick above his waist.
First of all, you don't really need to kick me over your waist. But look, the thing is with this guy, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Raj, is about he wears that tank top throughout most of the movie, but he's like doesn't have the physique for it. I'm like, dude, cover up. He should have worn a fucking wetsuit the entire time.
It's like watching your buddy who lives across the street's dad take down a group of terrorists.
Yeah, but I do like his creativity. Once he's done karate chopping and kind of sweeping people's legs, he actually impales one of the guys with a steel beam from the ceiling, and then he actually cuts and kills a dude with a bandsaw. That shit was bad. At least they were creative. I didn't have to deal with 50 sweep of the leg karate chop. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, first of all, the angle on that steel beam was absolutely impossible. Yes. You can't really impale a guy vertically. But also, like the bandsaw thing, I loved. What I don't understand is on both sides why they were getting so ridiculous. These sailors that are mounting a counterattack, there are dead bodies and weapons everywhere on the ship. They're abundant. Why are you making these improvised devices and mixing chemicals and like there was a condom and shit? Like, what is that? It's a lot of silly showing off. I get that the movie's trying to show that they're very clever, but what I really like is just to see these sailors, maybe a couple other ones that know what the fuck they're doing, kicking a little ass.
Oh, God, come on. You talk MacGyver moment. I totally agree. And Roger doubts what her capability is. She is his assistant in making this improvised bomb. She's not just a Playboy model. She knows how to drill. They're using a battleship explosive shell to some kind of like waterproof naval ship charge. They're boiling it. Like, of course, he's a cook. He's a culinary expert. He's like steaming the shell to liquefy the charge. It is ridiculous. It's glorious. And he couldn't have done it without the Playboy model.
Do you think that Steven Seagal thinks he's making documentaries about his life?
Probably, yes. Yes. Yes.
That's why I feel her dialogue in this movie is just strikingly close to like how it is in real life. I don't know. What am I doing here? Why am I on the set of a Steven Seagal movie? Some guy just gave me pills. I don't even know who he was or what they were. I think she's on drugs the entire movie. They trapped Erica Aleniak on set, and then she just had to complete it.
This guy gave me these pills, and I don't know what happened, and I guess I fell asleep.
That's one of Carrie Gross's new sound effects, just in case you were wondering.
So did it surprise anybody that the Navy SEALs, supposedly the most elite unit in the military, saw a fighter jet get shot down and then decided to come in on a helicopter?
Yes. Okay. So this is one of the most ridiculous things. So first of all, the SEAL team wouldn't come in by air, especially not that high up. When you see them shot down, the ship is like 200 feet below them at a distance. They said they're flying under the radar. No, you're flying where everybody on the ship could see you and hear you. The SEALs, their specialty is coming in silent. So they most likely would have come in submerged using some kind of a rebreather system, or they would have used the combat rubber raiding craft, the Zodiac. If that's the boat of choice when you're going to do covert over-the-horizon amphibious insertion operations. So there's no way that these knucklehead mercenaries would have seen the SEALs team come in. But of course it gets shot out of the air. Hey, look, it's a Chinook. Let's shoot it down.
Yeah, I feel like Navy SEALs, another early 90s classic action movie, does a much better job of depicting Navy SEALs than the SEAL Team 5 depiction in Under Siege. I did some research on this because I was like, wait a minute, why is the CIA deploying Navy SEALs and utilizing them? No. Yeah, the CIA in 1963.
Okay, but that didn't happen in this movie. The Pentagon.
It does.
No, the CIA guy, the CIA operative, he's at the table with the Pentagon. It's an actual admiral in the Navy who dispatches SEAL Team 5.
Yes, but the reason that Ryback was demoted down to a cook is because he lost his entire team running jobs for the CIA. Because the CIA, I did some history on this. The CIA used the SEAL teams starting in 1963 in Vietnam, and they used them also in Korea, and they also used them in Panama. The United States Navy contributed extensive special operation assets to the invasion of Panama, codenamed Operation Just Cause. It included SEAL Teams 2 and 4, and Panama, as we all know, is another quagmire in U.S. relations history. Not to get all political here, but go watch Narcos. They cover how Noriega was playing both sides. The point that I'm making is Ryback is where he is because of this douchebag working for the CIA that used him. There's much more of a backstory here. And I really like that. I was like, okay, they're getting a little, like, for as shitty as they depicted SEAL Team 5, they definitely depicted that CIA relationship with the SEALs and like gave Ryback a more robust backstory, which I appreciated. And I was like, I like this movie. It at least does a decent job of trying to explain why Ryback is in the position that he's in.
Are you back watching InfoWar videos again?
No, I'm just saying.
He punched his commanding officer. That's why he got demoted.
But because he lost all his crew. They got shoddy intelligence from the CIA and was sent into a mission that he never should have been at. And that's why he punched his commanding officer, because the commanding officer was being used by the CIA.
If anybody tweets or emails us and complains about me saying titties, we're going to have a problem here, because what Raj did is far more egregious. You know, I'm glad you guys did mention the Admiral and everybody in that like command room, because I felt like I was watching a totally different and much more serious movie in that scene. Those guys were super believable. I felt like I just accidentally like switched to a C-SPAN feed. I was like, these guys look like real commanding officers having a legitimate and mature conversation about what to do in this crisis.
The best line is that Admiral who realizes that he can't control Seagal. So he said, you know what? At least you're an asset there. I'm going to try my best. And then he like drops off the communication. He goes, they're having some trouble on that boat. Like, wow.
Well, Stranix regains control of the ship's systems and loads the Tomahawks onto the submarine. Ryback counters by swimming to the submarine and sabotaging it with an explosive charge, but he is wounded by a grappling hook in the process. With the aid of a retired World War II gunner's mate, who was among the 6 sailors rescued earlier, Ryback uses the battleship's 16-inch guns to sink the submarine, killing Krill and everyone on board. So I'm watching this scene, and all I can think about as he's making the explosives with Jordan, is he doing this correctly? He also makes like an improvised device that he leaves in the kitchen in the microwave. You were a sapper, Big D, in the military, which means you have extensive experience with explosives, correct?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, at the Sapper Leader course, we did extensive improvised explosives. So we would make naval ship charges, and I think I talked about this once before. Envision a large coffee mug, and what it does is it liquefies any metal, or it liquefies the force to punch a hole into a ship, and they're pretty effective. But they never taught me to take apart a 16-inch shell from a destroyer and then put it on top of a pot above a gas-burning stove. That's a bad idea. First of all, these ships don't have gas-burning stoves. That is not what they teach us. But guess what? I'm willing to go with it because Tate's there helping.
Okay, but also, like, he packs it in a backpack that he then jumps into the water and then swims across. Don't you need, again, I've never played with explosives, but don't you need some sort of dry in order to get the spark?
Hell no.
Like, no.
No.
So he's using.
Yeah.
What is he doing?
No, I don't know what he was doing because I didn't see his components. But if you have a blasting,
but what explosives would you make if you had to get into water? Is what I'm saying.
Ideal C4. If you had a blasting cap or some shock tube, of course it's waterproof. You could do it underwater easily.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's not like fucking Wile E. Coyote where you can Acme stick of dynamite and you light the fuse, then you can put underwater. You've taken an M80 or a Blockbuster and the wick is coated and you can light it and throw it in the water. But shock tube and deck cord is all sealed in. Yes, you could do it. He did the condom because God only know, he might have had a Bic lighter. I don't know what he was doing. But at least they tried to make it look believable.
All right. But what about guns? Can you shoot guns in water? Won't seawater ruin guns?
I don't think he cares about the lifespan of those weapons, but Mythbusters taught me if you just get like a foot or two under the water, the rounds actually hit the water and fragment. So it's believable.
All right. Well, did the old guy described in the outline, why is he on the ship? Why is a World War II veteran on the ship?
He's there for the decommissioning and the birthday party. Like he's a guest.
Oh, he's a guest. So he came in on the helicopter?
No, they had people arriving all over the place.
Yeah, they were going to do. When they decommission ships, they do ceremonies.
You know, I like the fact that they tried to show. You know, here's an old guy. You know, he's going to show the young bucks that are only here for the college program. He's going to show them what it means to be a real warrior, and he mans those guns really well. But an actress, is she really going to know how to man those guns?
you're telling me that you need this old guy to show you how to use these guns, but suddenly also this playmate in like a matter of minutes. This is somebody who had to have semi-automatic versus automatic. Well, I guess she didn't. She had it mansplained to her, so maybe she already knew. But the point being is she is now barking out orders on firing coordinates and, you know, how when to blow a sub out of the water.
Yeah, but keep in mind, maybe they needed the intestinal fortitude of these old guys from World War II, because they're having a conversation where, like you said, Roger, the college program, I'm going to play it for you because I don't think we do it justice, but they immediately want to cut loose and just run. And only the World War II, the wily vet could bring them back.
We gotta save them.
You know they're gonna have a trap for us.
If they're expecting me, just not all of us.
All of what? I do laundry. I was ironing during the Gulf War. I ain't cut out for this hero bullshit.
You're in the Navy, remember? It's not a job, it's an adventure.
Hey, the hell with that, man. I'm on a college program.
I'm with you, Case.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so you question why he's there. He's there to turn the crew from coward deserter to actual warrior. But the ultimate warrior here is the Navy SEAL Ryback. He finally gets to do what the Navy SEALs do best. He gets into the water. You know, he kind of slides over to the sub. And thankfully, again, the mercenaries, they're observant. How many times does somebody just kind of walk right past the guard and they don't see him? He says, hey, check the water. Look, there he is. Let's shoot at him. There could be a bomb. And instead of continuing to shoot at him, they decide to go all Pirates of the Caribbean and bust out the old grappling hook and start throwing it at him. And they actually hook him in the shoulder. And that takes a giant chunk out of his back. We see a good 4-foot square wetsuit piece come out of the water. But then 5 minutes later, the wound, I guess, is healed and he's miraculously moving around unhindered and still fighting. He hasn't been hurt one bit.
I just don't understand why people don't play it smart here on both sides again. You've got a guy in the water. Guess where he's going to come out? On probably a ladder. So you guard the ladder. As the guy in the water, where's the one place you should not go? The fucking ladder. Like, everybody's stupid here. And it takes, again, Jordan to pop up and be covert with all these searchlights, dozens of personnel on deck. Somehow she slips by and, you know, and shoots the guy in the back. It's ridiculous.
How did she get to the sub? Did she swim?
She was on the boat.
No, he was getting back onto the Missouri.
Yeah. He was back on the Missouri. His shoulder was ripped open.
I get it.
And the guy had to jump on him. And again, the typical, mercenary has to walk up instead of just shooting him. He has to talk to him.
Okay.
So he's like, ha, I'm going to stand here for a second. I'm going to get closer to you, and then I'm going to shoot you.
Stranik suffers a major concussion from being in the proximity of the Missouri's guns as they are fired. He launches then 2 nuclear-tipped Tomahawks towards Honolulu as the sailors recapture the ship. Ryback is surprised by Stranix, and after a grown man slap fight with knives, Ryback stabs Stranix through the top of his head before ramming him into a computer monitor. Ryback then takes a launch code disk needed to self-destruct the Tomahawk missiles, and a jet destroys one of the missiles and the other is deactivated just in time. The remaining crew members are freed as the ship then sails towards San Francisco Harbor. Ryback is checked by a Navy doctor, kissing Jordan as the crew looks on and cheers. Meanwhile, a funeral ceremony for Captain Adams is held on the deck of the Missouri, showing Ryback saluting in his formal dress uniform with full decorations. End movie.
Okay, so you said slap fight. I don't think you
grown man slap fight.
You did not do this knife fight shenanigans any kind of justice, okay? Did you miss? He ripped out the dude's throat. He pulled a Dalton from Roadhouse. He just went in there and just ripped it out clean. And, so Stranix gets the jump on him. And again, instead of shooting him, he decides to tell him, hey, I have the launch key in my pocket. And then they break out, like you said, the slap fight, knife fight. Did you see how Ryback disarms the knife from Tommy Lee? He uses his teeth. He grabs the butcher knife with his teeth and disarms him. This is ridiculous, but awesome at the same time.
Steven Seagal also is notorious for having the film sped up when he fights. And I remember watching this, though, as a kid, thinking to myself, is that how you're supposed to fight with knives?
Well, I want to ask that to Gene, because Gene's our resident weapon expert. He's the martial arts. He's training daily to defend himself. Do you hold a knife, point out, or Seagal points it almost like the tip is at his wrist?
Right.
Is there some technique there, Gene, that we're missing?
The key to knife fighting that a lot of people don't understand, and my shout out to my friend Reggie, who's taught me a lot about this. He talks at length at bars about knife fighting very loudly. But one of the things that you want to do is people think about the stabbing as a in and out sort of motion. And the truth of it is that the damage is done once the blade is in you and then moves around is the idea, right? So once it's made its way into you. And in that case, this is not a really great way to hold it. But, there's different knife fighting styles. I get what he's doing, but I think he's doing it in this sense to just kind of look cool. It's not super effective. But look, knives are dangerous in any manner. The fact that he's not cut to shit is kind of the surprising part.
Okay, so we've now seen that Seagal, he is skilled with a knife. He's a Chinook helicopter pilot. He's a welder. He's a culinary specialist. And also now he somehow knows how to fire the 16-inch gun on the battleship. So I was like, I got to look into this. Is this possible for this ragtag band of maybe 5 or 6 Navy cooks? Okay, so the 16-inch guns on an Iowa-class battleship, they fire projectiles that weigh between 1,900 and 2,700 pounds. They have a maximum speed of 2,700 feet per second and a range of 24 miles. Each turret requires 94 men to operate, not 5 cooks. Okay, and that includes the crew in the magazine and shell handling spaces. So I don't know how they try to get us to believe. I wasn't in the Navy, but I knew right away, how the fuck are these 5 guys going to fire this weapon and hit a sub that's underway and traveling the opposite way?
Yeah, I mean, it seems highly unlikely, but again, I think that there was, I hate to say it, there was a bit of tension. Like, is Gary Busey going to get his ass underwater before they can hit him? And I mean, the fact that they could even recover the sub into a diving shape when he's like, yeah, get a welder and like a stick. We're going to dive this fucker. Yeah. After an explosion on your sub, I think diving is probably the worst idea. You're much better off just trying to turn and go. Like, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, I don't even think they took out the plugs out of the end of those 16-inch guns. Did you see that? I would have been funny if the shell just exploded in the breach.
Cher's just screaming up there. Didn't have time to get off. But I think what bothers me about all the problems with this movie are the problems with almost every 90s action movie. And the celebration part is where I'm just like, what is, like, you just had all these guys die. The captain of the ship is dead on his, like, during his birthday party. There's sailors' bodies everywhere. People are dead in the water. People are dead on the ship. And you think now is a good time to live it up? Everybody's cheering, joking with each other. And this happened all the way into like Independence Day. It's these celebration scenes are ridiculous. I can see relief, but celebration?
It's the American version of Bollywood dancing at the end.
Dude, it's in Backdraft. You remember all the firemen died on the roof? And they're like,
it's in the Phantom Menace. The Gungans throw a tremendous parade.
Dude, they do it right
and everyone's
after.
having a good celebration.
Yeah. And during the celebration with the crew, Seagal has built up so much goodwill during this movie. He's funny. He's engaging. I'm liking him. The celebrating crew, hey, come on, Ryback, show us a move. And then Seagal has to shit it. Just shit it all the way right on the deck. He says,
he really does.
I'll show you a move. Turns around and just kisses Jordan. And the crew's like, woo, yeah. And you can see it in Jordan's dead eyes in the scene that she's repulsed. She's like, why is this happening? She would rather jump out of 50 cakes topless than kiss this ponytailed serpent. He just shit it all away right there.
Well, and I think they take it a step further where they're trying to have this really poetic moment toward the end. So you see, during the funeral, I'm like, okay, finally we're going to get a somber moment here. They're going to end this movie right. You've got him on the deck of the ship. They got the flag draped over the casket. The music swells. He's got all of his medals on him, whatever. And then Steven Seagal decides to salute. And it is the sloppiest salute. His fingers are splayed in some weird creature from the Black Lagoon sort of, hand positioning. As a cadet corps commander, I am insulted on behalf of the AZ-861st on this horrible display by Steven Seagal. It is atrocious.
Well, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meter and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 0 wipes is a perfect movie. 5 wipes is a terrible movie. That being said, Big D, how many wipes do you give Under Siege?
I thought coming in, this was an easy one. This was going to be a 5, but I was very surprised. Yeah, the main plot, it's not new, it's not original. And Seagal, even though he's funny, he's still pretty wooden. But the film excels due to the great cinematography, the location, the Alabama or the Missouri. It was fun. The fighting scenes were entertaining. I think there was some wonderful performances. You know, Tommy Lee Jones, you had Gary Busey, you had a good sidekick. I thought Erica did a great job. Yeah, the movie's ridiculous at times, and the plot's implausible, but it's undeniably fun. Occasionally, it's genuinely suspenseful, like you said, shooting at the sub. It's not anything near the level of Die Hard or even later on Air Force One. But if you want a decent action thriller and you want to see one of the better funny Steven Seagal performances, this is surprisingly worth it. And if a 2.5 is average, I think this is a little bit better. I'm going to give it a 2 wipe score.
Yeah, Big D, I, in good conscience, can't give anything above, or any Steven Seagal movie above a 2.5. That being said, that's what I'm going to give this. This is the best Steven Seagal movie out there. The director does a good job of limiting his faults and highlighting his strengths. Seagal is best in small doses. Again, the only other good performance Steven Seagal has given in a lifetime of work is in Kurt Russell's 1996 Executive Decision, where they kill him in the first 15 minutes. So if I have to watch an entire movie starring Steven Seagal from start to finish, it's going to be Under Siege. But it's still an average movie. It's still worse than every other 90s movie that's like this, including Die Hard and all the Die Hard movies. So, yeah, 2.5 wipes. It's average at best. It just happens to be the best Steven Seagal movie. Gene.
I'm going to have to go with Big D on this one. I'd sort of dismiss Seagal. I think of Seagal today as this fat joke of an action star who still, for some reason, continues to make movies. Like, he needs to fucking hang it up. But in this is prime Seagal. This is, early 90s Seagal. He brings something to the screen that few action stars do. Like, when you think about your Arnolds, your Sylvester Stallones, even your Bruce Willises, they all seem to give a fuck. Steven Seagal spends the whole movie seeming like he gives zero fucks. Like, he is not impressed with the girl. He's gruff and unflappable, but he doesn't go into the territory of like uncaring and unlikable. He's just kind of like, he just doesn't give a shit. And one of the things I also liked is that, like you said, small doses. There are scenes where like there's like he's got a lot of like he's surrounded by a lot of like Black and Hispanic actors in the kitchen, and he's just kind of chilling, letting them do their thing. He doesn't try to get in on the dance competition. Like, he's not trying to, to jive talk anybody. He's just being Steven Seagal. And there's a natural, I don't want to say grace, but a natural coalescence to it.
It doesn't seem forced.
Exactly.
You guys love Steven Seagal.
No, but I think that I like the movie. The movie, if it was just Steven Seagal doing that, I think it'd be a little bit boring. But you've also got constant action, surprisingly quotable. I think we were laughing our asses off quoting this movie. So for me, it is just slightly above average. It's not a so-so movie. I would actually watch this again under the right circumstances, especially kind of as a watch along and drink along, much in the way that I appreciate The Room or Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's I shouldn't say that. Rocky Horror Picture Show is much better than this movie, but it's not a bad movie. So I go 2 wipes.
Two wipes and 1 2.5 wipes. So if we were to add all our wipes together and give you one Shat score, what would that be, Gene?
With 2, 2, and 2.5, that averages out to a 2.16 repeating average Shat score for Under Siege.
And Big D, where does that put it on the pantheon of Shat?
Man, again, oh, God, there's one in there again. Fuck you, Roger. This is on you. Okay, so this is now tied in the 39 spot with Home Alone and Major League. It feels good right there. It's worse than Pet Sematary, Beverly Hills Cop, but then it's tied with fucking The Goonies. Why did you give The Goonies a 3?
Because The Goonies is a terrible movie. It's not good.
Oh. You think The Goonies is worse than this?
Yes.
What kind of babbling bullshit is this?
Well, now's the time where we give our shout outs. Gene, what's a shout out?
Raj, a shout out is our way of saying thank you for listening to the podcast and visiting the website. If you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com, put your name in any of the shout out boxes, and we'll read it here on the podcast. This week's shout outs go out to Rachel from Glasgow, Scotland, Rita, Nima R., Justin Lee, Felix from Birmingham, Cody the Shathead, Antonio, Matt Raleigh, Tyson, Sven, David Tron Viper, Mark, Felix Hester, Wicked Pinto, Wes from Texas, Grant from Mars, and Pat McGovern. I'd also like to send a special shout out to a special lady out there who might be listening right here. I don't know where you are or what you're doing this very second, but I hope that you're somewhere warm, loving, and gentle. This one goes out to Samantha Gibbs from Arkansas. I hope you're dancing out there somewhere like you did when you were a kid, like you've taught so many generations to dance. I hope you're out there dressed up in a costume, maybe by a babbling brook, just enjoying your dark fantasy world as we enjoy it with you. We're thinking of you, Samantha.
Samantha, you're the best.
And thanks for listening to Shat the Movies.
What just happened? I don't know what any of that was about.
That's Samantha Gibbs.
That's shout-outs, Raj.
Oh, got it.
Raj, you don't know Samantha Gibbs?
I don't.
Woo. Everybody knows Samantha Gibbs.
All right. What's the next movie category we're doing?
Next category we're doing was video game movies. Double Dragon from 94, Wing Commander from 99, Street Fighter from 94, Super Mario Brothers from 93, Mortal Kombat from 95, and Tron from 1982. If you want to stay to the end of the podcast, listen to the trailer and find out what video game movie we're doing next week.
That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us everywhere on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle at Shat the Movies. We're on Facebook, so search for Shat the Movies Podcast. Our website, where you can vote on upcoming movies, is shatthemovies.com. You can email us your suggestions at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by any of those, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That really does help the podcast grow. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, and Game of Thrones. You can find all the information on the website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene Ryback-Lyons, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following video game movie review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
I've got a little challenge for you, Sark. A new recruit.
What kind of program is he?
He's not any kind of program, Sark.
Name's Flynn. I'm what you guys call a user.
Users wrote us. The user even wrote you.
I'd like to go against you and see what you're made of.
Where am I?
You're guest, the Master Control program. Gonna make you play video games.
I play video games better than anybody. Come on, Dick Fella, let's see what you got.
You'll regret this.
Who's that guy?
That's Tron, fights for the universe.
Oh man, this isn't one of all the things that's happening.
The guy was asking about you. Something different about him. You are a user. And everything you've done has been according to a plan.
I want to win the games until he dies playing.
Now for some real user power.
I don't know how you survived that termination.
On the other side of the screen, it all looks so easy. Tron?
You really think the users are still there?
The users can no longer help us. We lost. My user wants me to go after the MCP.
There's just 3 of us.
You should have joined me. We made a great team. No!
There's nothing special about you. You're just an ordinary program. So are you. One that should have been erased.
Take our every game tank in the grid. Get out of here! Where's the program?
You are making me talk.
Finish the game! No!
Nothing.
End of line.